Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Interesting coaching setup in college football. And that's with the Florida Gators and Billy Napier. Okay, so if you listen to this show, you know I have been critical of Billy Napier, but I think I've been justifiably critical of Billy Napier. In year 4, he started the year 1-3. His offense, his baby, was a train wreck. That 1-3 start included a loss to South Florida at home, which I have great respect for Alex Golesh. I have great respect for the program that he's building. The counter to that is, you can't lose to South Florida at home if you were the Florida Gators and Billy Napier. So I've been critical. I have to be fair. They were great out of the bye last week against Texas. And oh, by the way, last year, after the first bye, they really kind of hit their stride. After they come out of their bye, they beat UCF, and they were a different team out of the bye. And so coming out of the bye, they get the win over Texas. And I think there's this kind of conversation. It's not happening with Florida fans. I don't think it's happening with really knowledgeable college football fans, but basically a conversation of like, I don't know, could Billy Napier, be on the track to saving his job? Now, I think part of it, in my opinion, is that Texas might just not be good. We'll be talking about Texas here in a little bit. But what I would also say is this, is that if there was some sort of notion that Texas was a job-saving moment for Billy Napier, can't pull the wool over the eyes of Florida Gators boosters because they are unimpressed. And I saw a report on Wednesday that basically said, like, look, Florida fans are happy. Florida fans they're happy that let me rephrase. Florida fans are happy they saw a win. They are happy that they didn't have to leave the swamp with head in hands, screaming and yelling and crying and calling into the post-game show, whatever. At the same time, Florida fans, and I include myself in this, are not sold that because Florida beat Texas, that this program has suddenly been saved and everything is figured out. And so earlier this week, Brett McMurphy from On3 put out a report about the state of things and basically insinuated that, oh, by the way, just because Florida beat Texas, it does not mean that anything has changed on the status of Billy Napier. And it's going to take much more than one win over a now unranked Texas opponent to get the job done for Billy Napier to return in 2026. Quick note before we get to the actual quotes. We know my policy on stories behind a paywall. This one was, but shout out to the On3 newsletter because they basically gave the whole story in the newsletter. So if you were subscribed, you basically got to read it all. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase the state of Florida football after Texas. Brett McMurphy reporting that really nothing has changed in Billy Napier's status. Producer Matt, let's start with the Billy Napier report, or the Billy Napier report from Brett McMurphy. This is from Brett McMurphy on 3. Facing a, quote, win or else moment, the Gators delivered their best performance of the season, stunning number 9 Texas 29-21 in Gainesville. It should have been a unifying moment. This is a crazy side story that I did not know. It should have been a unifying moment until UF's general manager for player personnel, Jacob LaFrance, tweeted, quote, Sunbelt Billy and the boys. It's a jab at the nickname critics give Napier. So in other words, the GM basically goes on Twitter after the game and starts mocking the fan base. This is back to McMurphy's report. The tweet, later deleted, left many inside the program frustrated. One source told On3 the move felt, quote, tone deaf. Keep it going. For Napier, and this is the important part, every step forward seems to be followed by a stumble back. He's the only Florida coach in 75 years to never finish a season ranked. That's an unbelievable stat. And at 21-22 overall, he's never been more than 2 games above 500. Quote, the administration would love for Billy to win and be successful, but the people that pay the bills, the big money boosters, they know he's not the guy. They're over him. There's too much evidence he's not the guy that can win a national championship. All right. Keeps going, by the way. Still, not everyone has given up. The players love him, and the team has bought in, quote one source. He doesn't have discipline issues. He's good in the building, good around the building, another source added. Billy does most everything right Sunday through Friday, It's just a nightmare on Saturdays, again, via Brett McMurphy and the On3 newsletter. So, lot to dive into there. A couple things. A few things stand out about that. One, first of all, I did love the line of he's great in the building Sunday through Friday. If that's not the definition of, man, she's got a great personality, but I don't know what is, because, I mean, come on, man. Listen, do I want every school to have great character kids and everybody does the right thing all the time? Yes. And listen, I'm glad that the Florida program has been cleaned up to a degree. I'm glad they have good kids in the program. I'm glad the kids are representing the university well. And I would say that about every school from my alma mater, UConn, all 134 FBS schools or whatever it is. At the same time, though, nobody cares about any of that. All they care about is, are you winning? And he's simply not doing it enough. By the way, I would also say this. I did not know that story about the GM, but I do think to McMurphy's report and to the sourcing in that report, it really does speak to what a kind of train wreck the situation is at Florida. And not even that it's a train wreck, but that beyond it being a train wreck, the whole Billy Napier era could be summed up in one sentence: 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I guess with a comma, it's one sentence. That might be 2 sentences depending on your punctuation, but you get the point. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Listen, Saturday, you beat Texas. Now, I don't think Texas is very good, but conversely, that should be a great moment. You haven't had a lot of big wins. You should be celebrating that. And then, oh, by the way, your player personnel GM goes on Twitter and starts mocking the fans that pay the bills, the fans that show up, the fans that pack the swamp. And it's like, what are we even doing here? And again, metaphor: 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You win a big game, you immediately lose a bad one. You dominate Long Island, you immediately lose to USF. You have a positive play, interception, positive this, negative that. That has been the Billy Napier experience at Florida. And so I don't blame Florida fans. And I don't believe that Billy Napier has somehow done anything to prove that he's still the right guy. Listen, at the end of the day, at Florida, it is still about competing in college football at the highest level. And I understand they've gone through a few coaches since they've been super successful. But I don't think, and I say this about a lot of programs. I said it about Penn State fans earlier this week. I've said it about Kentucky fans. I've said it about Arkansas fans. I've said it about other fan bases. I don't think Florida fans are unrealistic. I don't think there's a Florida fan out there that's like, if the next guy doesn't go 12-0 every single year, he's a failure. But can you win some games that matter? I think as importantly, can you win some games against your rivals? And I think that is one thing about college football that is so interesting about this sport. You're judged by your on-the-field performance, but you're judged by your peers. And right now, Florida has fallen behind their peers to the point that they're a punchline. Against Georgia, Georgia is the premier program right now in the SEC. Reigning SEC champs, made the college football playoff a year ago, won 2 titles in the previous 4 years. By the way, if there had been a 12-team playoff 3 years ago, they probably would have been the favorite the year that Michigan won it. So Georgia's rolling. Tennessee, clearly trending in the right direction with Josh Heupel. Florida State, yes, last year was a down year. They're a top 20 team, top 25 team. I know they're coming off back-to-back losses, but top 25 team beat Alabama. Miami just destroyed you for a second straight year. Mario Cristobal, for all the criticism that guy gets, he has built a heck of a program. So one, I don't think Florida fans are being unrealistic, but two, also, all of your rivals are really good right now. You're not performing. And at the end of the day, the stats speak for themselves, right? What do they say? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Well, guess what? The numbers don't lie. That stat that Brett McMurphy put out was absolutely amazing. 21-22 overall, has never been more than 2 games above 500 as the Florida Gators coach. And oh, by the way, on top of that, this was the crazy one. First coach in 75 years that has never finished a season ranked. I'll give you a few more that were in that newsletter, but I didn't include them in all the boards and stuff. How about this? Florida is 0-13 against ranked teams outside of Gainesville. Okay, so that's part of the reason why nobody believes they're going to turn this thing around. You got to go to A&M. You got to go play Georgia on a neutral field. You got to go to Ole Miss. Well, those are 3 losses right there, and that all of a sudden gets you to 6-6 at best. So 0-13 against ranked teams outside of the swamp, Oh, by the way, on top of it, a 3-12 record against those 5 big rivals. I mentioned them: Miami, Florida State, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU. 3-12 is not going to get the job done. The one thing I will say, well, I don't believe in Billy Napier, and I did pick Texas A&M to win and cover earlier in the week. This game does feel kind of important at A&M, right? Because if you win this game at A&M, not only are you 3-3, which it's crazy to think that, like, and I'm not saying Florida fans would be happy with 3-3, but if you beat A&M, you are somehow 3-3, 2-1 in the SEC with back-to-back wins over ranked opponents. You then play Mississippi State before a bye. You're 4-3 going into a bye on a 3-game win streak. And I will tell you, I've talked to Florida people that have that second bye circled as probably when Billy Napier will get fired. The reason he wasn't fired, by the way, going into the first bye a few weeks ago was because of the fact that basically the 4-game redshirt rule would have been in place. If you fire him, all of the best players could have redshirted to enter the transfer portal. And so I solely bring it up because, to me, I think that was why he wasn't fired. But if you beat A&M this weekend, there is a very good chance that you will be going into your bye week at 4-3 on a 3-game winning streak, and then you at least get the back half of the year to figure things out. Conversely, if you lose this game to A&M, I just don't see the pathway towards you keeping that job. Because if you lose this game to A&M, as I just said, you do get Mississippi State at home next week. So now you're talking about whatever. Did I say they would be 4-3 going into a bye? Yeah, they'd be 4-3. You lose this game, at best you're 3-4. But conversely, even if you survive the second bye week, which I'm not sure you would, you then have Georgia on the road, or Georgia in Jacksonville, Ole Miss on the road. Now you're talking about at best 6-6, and that's under the assumption that you beat Tennessee at home and you beat Florida State at home, neither of which is a gimme. So I just bring it up because, listen, if you are one of the few that still believes in Billy Napier, this is kind of an important weekend for you. I don't see the pathway towards getting the record necessary to keep the fans happy if you take your 4th loss by October 11th. I just don't see it. Too many tough games left on the schedule, whatever. And then from there, we'll talk about a coaching search. But I thought it was an interesting article from Brett McMurphy, an interesting concept that, oh, by the way, even after the win against Texas, the people that matter, the big boosters know, and they know Billy Napier, not really the guy.